his first Mass as the new Pope, Leo XIV, this morning had a message of unity and collaboration for the cardinals gathered with him in the Sistine Chapel.
And I know I can rely on each and every one of you to walk with me as we continue as a church, as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers, to announce the good news, to announce the gospel.
Chicago-born Robert Francis Prevost was elected to be the next pontiff after 2 days of conclave. His first Mass offering clues around the type of leadership he's going to bring to the Catholic Church. Ricardo da Silva is a Jesuit priest and associate editor of America Magazine and producer of Inside the Vatican podcast, and he's with us this morning. Welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you.
You listened to his homily this morning. What were your thoughts with what he shared with his fellow ministers?
I listened very briefly, but what I was moved by were really his remarks. You've called me to carry the cross and to be blessed.
What does that say to you?
Just that for Pope Leo, this is a weighty responsibility. This is obviously a blessing because he is called and trusted upon by his brother cardinals to lead the church. And, he said it himself yesterday, with you I am a Christian, for you I am a bishop, but also a cross because he knows the weight of this responsibility. He, after all, is the one who would present names to Pope Francis on a weekly basis of those who he deemed fit to hold the office of bishop, because he was head of the dicastery for bishops, which inevitably would help Pope Francis choose the bishops of the world. So he knows the church's lights and shadows.
Take me back to yesterday, Ricardo, when you, like thousands of people around the world, had their eyes glued on the balcony waiting to see who the new Pope would be. What was your reaction when it was Robert Francis Prevost?
So it was quite extraordinary. I wrote an article actually earlier this week where I named Cardinal Prevost as, one of 8 from religious orders. I was looking at the religious order cardinals in the conclave, and there were at least 4 who had headed up religious orders, and he was one of them. And I told my colleagues maybe a week ago, I said to some of my colleagues, I have a feeling it's going to be Cardinal Prevost. And so when it was announced, we were in the newsroom, and one of my colleagues turned to me and she said, you knew who it was, and so it felt like I did know who it was. At the same time, I knew very little about him because they had been clear front runners.
Yes.
Obviously they didn't have a majority support, but they were clear front runners in Cardinal Tagle and in Cardinal Parolin, at least if what was being reported in the media was to be believed.
So what then do you believe made him stand out? Why was he the choice by the other cardinals?
I think undoubtedly it's the way that he bridges worlds, right? And again, he spoke about building bridges, but he is a man born in Chicago, much of his ministry in Chicago in the beginning, and then moved to Chiclayo, a missionary at heart, moved to Chiclayo, Peru, where he then served as bishop for 20 years. This is somebody very much, there was question, was he, the new Pope, going to be in the vein of Francis? I think it's undoubted that he's in the vein of Francis in the missionary sense, in the sense that he is for the poor, that he is humble, and that he is about service. Perhaps the most affecting moment for me was when he was fighting back tears as he was delivering this address from the balcony of St. Peter yesterday.
Almost immediately after the world discovered that he had been named Pope, his social media posts surfaced that echoed those of the late Pope Francis, where he echoed his disagreement over J.D. Vance's theology around mass deportations, what was happening in that sector in the U.S. What does this tell us? What clues does this give us about the possible direction that this Pope will take the Church?
I think, it's in his name. Pope Leo XIV, following on from Leo XIII, who had been responsible for bringing the church into the modern era and social teaching, the Catholic social teaching of the church, social justice, justice for workers, fair pay, dignity and human rights. And he's clearly taken that name after Leo XIII. We've been told that. And so you can be sure that he is going to be on the side of those most impoverished, on the side of those despised, isolated, and alienated.
I'm sure, like yourself, you're watching people in America who are very excited to him, calling him Chicago's Pope. We've learned some really interesting things about him. He's a White Sox fan. His mom was a librarian. Dad was a school principal. What will be next for this Pope in the coming weeks? And, when will he start to travel? I think people are curious about.
Yeah, I think those two things are big questions. The first we know that he will, we know that he presided at Mass for all the cardinals today to give thanks for the election. But we also know that he will preside at the midday blessing tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Sunday, from St. Peter's. And so we are expecting that Urbi et Orbi, that blessing to Rome and to the world. Yesterday was an Urbi et Orbi, but this will be his first on a Sunday, which is always something to expect from the Pope. The other thing is, at the end of May, Pope Francis was due to travel, obviously, before his illness, but this is a year in which we celebrate the anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, where Christians, East and West, come together and had a common date for Easter. That was one of Pope Francis' desires. Of course, we celebrated that this year. And he will be going, we don't know that he will be, but Pope Francis was going to be going to Nicaea in Turkey to celebrate that council and that momentous occasion for Christians. And we wait to see whether that'll happen for Pope Leo.
Yeah. Lots to watch for in the coming days and weeks. Ricardo da Silva, Jesuit priest, associate editor of America Magazine, and producer of Inside the Vatican podcast. Great to have you with us this morning. Thank you.
Great to be with you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.